Hi there, and welcome to the Sheroes Collective podcast. I'm your host, Renee Sparks, and this is Series 3, Women Authors, and Episode 4. And I am so humbled to be having an amazing Shero that's joining us today. And it's none other than Alexandra De Ruiz. And she is a gender and sexuality freelance consultant, a published author in Mexico, Spain, and the United States. She's an activist and a scholar, so we're going to hear all about that. She's graduated from City College in San Francisco, and she is an English instructor and translator. So our paths have crossed, Alexandra, in regard to exactly all of these. So I'm looking forward to those conversations. Alexandra is an advocate for human rights and transgender people, including trans migrants, trans sex workers, trans elderly, and trans people living with HIV. Alexandra lives in Mexico City, where she's the program director of La Jauria Trans, a trans-led virtual program, and she's actively part of the LGBTI plus community, organizing and mobilizing the trans movement internationally, doing presentations, workshops, and writing for various publications. So looking forward to digging a bit more. And if I've missed anything, then please feel free to add. Welcome, Alexandra.
Thank you so much. What a great honor to be here today with you, and especially talking about my work, my projects. I'm really excited because my book, which is titled in English, "I Crossed the Border in High Heels," was just published last May. So it's been a roller coaster ride, like I've been so busy presenting it all over the place. I already presented the book in Europe. I went to England, and although the book was published in Spain and in Spanish, I've been really busy because we're already working on the translation into English and Italian as well. So it's really exciting. And I wanted to add also that, I'm very fortunate to be a person that can advocate for those who don't have a platform or are not being heard. So this is a great honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for adding all of that. Absolutely. The reason for this discussion is that writing and that book that you've had published. So I think I'd like to find out, where did your the romance start with writing? Where did you decide this is what you're going to do?
This came about because I used to talk about my experience as a teenager trans migrant, that I have to escape persecution and violence here in Mexico City when I was 16 years old. And then I went to the border of US and Mexico, and I have to, of course, find ways to survive there. And during the work that I was doing with my communities and speaking publicly about my own experience as a trans migrant, undocumented teenager, all these intersectionalities, um, people started saying, you should write your memoirs, you should write these stories. I mean, they're fascinating. We want to know more. So that's how it came about that I wanted to start writing them. And it wasn't easy, really, because when I started writing, putting words together, it took me to some dark places, of course, but also took me back to some beautiful memories of wonderful people that I have met along the way in my journey. Um, so um, it took me almost 12 years to write this book. And part of the idea was to leave the US, come back to Mexico for 2 years to write the book. But like I said, it took me 12 years. So I just stayed here in Mexico City, and I don't see myself going anywhere now, because I love this city. Although it's not the same city that I left when I was 16 years old. I got 61. I'm 66. I'm 61 years old now, and so I don't see myself, going anywhere now. But I just love my city, my people, my culture, my history. So that's how it came about. And also because when you think about it, there are not many stories about the trans migrant experience, and written. I mean, there's not, they might be like people that don't research that, but nothing written on a first person or a first voice. So for me, it was important also that my experience, was narrated and on this book. So yeah, that's how it came about.
That's incredible. I mean, you speak about 12 years and then you have mentioned just the pain of it as well. How do you how do you manage to find yourself among that? I mean, you're having to face some of the realities that you've gone through, some of the traumas, there might be triggers involved. How do you self-care and still be true to the book, you know?
Oof, yeah, it wasn't easy because definitely there was some trauma there, and even some trauma that I kind of like forgot about it and I put aside, and I say, leave it behind. And when I start writing about it again, and I go back to the moments, or those moments, those hardships, those challenges, those sad and horrible moments in my life. um um it wasn't easy. I have to put it down. I think that's why it took 12 years, because there were times where I wouldn't even touch it for months. I would like, not, I don't want to go back right now. And I will put it aside and forget about it. Um, so yeah, but I think what helped me a lot, it was I had support from friends and family to do this, to finish the work. And also, um you know um I'm part of a various communities. They're very supportive, and I think that helps me a lot. And also, realizing, what my place of privilege is compared to other people. They have had more terrible experiences. Like, I try to stay away from self-victimization. I don't like to be like, oh, poor me, I have to go to work when I was 6 years old, and things like that, because that's not where it's at. I mean, I'm glad that I was able to go to work when I was 6 years old, and help my mother, and that helped me to learn that I could do different things. Because when I got to the US, for example, people used to tell me, oh, go stand in a corner and you'll make some money. And I knew I could do something else different. I don't have to resort to sex work just to survive, which is a job. It's an honorable job, and there's nothing wrong with it, because I know that my story is different from all other or any other story of a trans identified individual. But for me, I think being able to go to work when I was 6 years old, it really taught me that I could do different things. And if I put my mind to it, I can change things or my situation at the moment. So, yeah. And I think that helped me a lot also, because I know, for example, as well, that it's not the same for me that I went from Mexico City to the US-Mexico border than a person that's coming from Honduras or from Nicaragua, escaping violence and persecution and exploitation, and it has to go to 3-4 different countries just to get to the US-Mexico border. It's not the same story. Like, I crossed the border through the hills at the border, but some people cross the border inside a cage or inside a box.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I cannot imagine how horrible that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I've heard you say now is that you take the experiences you've had, and you don't necessarily you paint it as the reality, but you're also mindful, like you said now, of your privilege and of what that actually could mean in a different, if you look at it through a different lens. I mean, if you say to someone you started working at 6 years old, there's a lot of opinions or a lot of thoughts that would go with that, right? So, I mean, the way that you're spinning it now is like, I'm not the victim here. I actually learned something out of this experience, which is really something rare. So thank you for sharing that. Then also, I totally get it took 12 years because it was a real story and you had to deal and grapple with things. But did you find some process that kind of helped you push through the 12 years? Because maybe like you had a bit more of a push in the last 2 years or something. What kind of made you sit down and now put pen to paper, for lack of a better word? Having you spoke about the support. Did something change? Did you have more like support in terms of writing, or what kind of got you there?
Well, I have a partner that will force me to write, for example, like to have the what's the word that I'm looking for? The to set the time to write.
To be structured.
So I had a writing partner.
Oh.
Well, we will meet once a week and we will write for an hour, right? And I have to write no matter what. And she saw me through this process as well, because sometimes I will start to cry and we will stop and take a break and things like that. So that was a great support for my beloved Marcia Ochoa. But also, I think talking to other people too, from the few survivors from my generation that I was able to locate while I was writing and here in Mexico City, because that was another situation too, when writing about your past, and it's been so long, and writing about 40-50 years ago, and my mind will play tricks. Sometimes I will be at the same place 3 different times or 3 different places at the same time, and I will say, oh no, this is not how that happened, or that's not the person that that was there. And so I talking to them, it was also very helpful. And also I have to do research, right? Research on history of the places, because I mean, this is not the same city that I left. I mean, what is it? 44 years ago, right?
Wow.
It's completely different city now. And so I have to do my research as well, investigating, looking at history books about the city. And then also, I have my photograph archives, but unfortunately they got damaged during the 1985 earthquake here in Mexico City. So I was very fortunate that I located people that will say, oh, here, you can take whatever you want from my archives, or you can use this from my archives, these pictures of places, pictures of people. And so it was wonderful, because my book also, for me, it was important to have images of the people that I was talking about, because the book is not only about me. The book is about the wonderful and fabulous people that I met, and the places that I remember, and so yeah, so it was very good for me to be able to do all this and put it into my book. Yeah.
Fantastic. Tell me, when you decided to publish, were you, how did you go about thinking about whether to self-publish or whether to find a publisher? How did you kind of, and then to find a publisher that matches who, you know, what you want to bring?
Yeah, it wasn't easy as well, because as you know, not anybody is gonna say, "Oh, yeah, give us your book." I mean, I'm an unknown author, and I'm talking about something that is not like,
Yeah.
I mean, really, I'm not talking about film or talking about, I don't know, art. It's just a memoirs book. So I have two publishers that they were interested, but I didn't meet their deadlines or their criteria. So, they canceled me, and I was kind of disappointed. And I was thinking, well, I can self-publish, I I can spend some of my savings and self-publish. But I was very fortunate that I have connections all over the world. And during one of my presentations in Spain in the Canary Islands, the Center for the Arts in Tenerife um, hear me talking about my book in one of my presentations, and they say, "Oh, well, maybe your book can be part of the program that we are doing, because they have like the trans program, which was like the trans migrant experience internationally. So they have people from all over the world come in and talk about trans migrations, and they thought that my book will be a great addition to be part of the project. So they helped me to get it published.
Oh, okay.
And then I had already in my mind, I have already, you know, the photographs that I wanted to be included in this book. I already have and I already hired an artist to do the cover design and everything for me. But of course, you know how the publishers are. So they came back to me and they say, "Well, we usually don't put photos in our publications,
Mm.
and then your cover we consider it like a comic book cover, so
Oh,
we cannot use it." So we negotiated, and I was very fortunate that we were able to, getting in an agreement of the photographs more than
yeah.
anything, and also because I told them how important for me was to have faces and images of the places that I was talking about. So they agree with me, and then the cover as well. They had an idea for a cover, and I had another idea, so we finally agree, after negotiating for a few months there, back and forth. So we both were happy with the final result.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a great story too. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, when you met them, was your book complete? It was just a matter of them having to look at it and then the negotiations, or you then had to go into like negotiations with them around finishing it. I'm just trying to think for
Well, the
people listening
the
and
book
the
was
process.
the book was completed, but it
Okay.
wasn't edited or corrected yet, the style and all that. So
Okay.
we have to also go through that process.
Okay.
That took another year, because I think I finished the book in 2020.
Okay.
So then by the time I I start working on it and what pictures and this and that, it was another year. Actually, I finished the book during the pandemic.
I was just going to
Yeah,
say, it sounds like COVID gave you that
yeah, in
space to actually sit down.
2020,
Yeah.
right there. Yeah.
Okay.
And then it took another year to get it, like, the final product, and then it had to go through another edits and corrections and
Yeah.
the style and everything. So yeah, it was complete, I think, and by the end of 2022. Yeah, and then it was the
This one.
cover, that we have to deal with it again. So yeah, but yeah, it was a long process. Like I say, it took me 12 years,
Yeah.
but I'm very happy that I did it.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask, through the process of writing, did you find yourself going back and trying to perfect something, or did you write it and that was it? Because sometimes I've heard some authors say, the book was done, but then I went back and I rewrote certain chapters. Or was that the type of work you've done when you kind of 360'd it with your community? When you said I was trying to go back and remember if this was correct, so you were kind of doing the perfection in that space already as you were going along?
Yeah, I think a few times I have to go back because there were times where I was like, I, like a mechanism of self-defense. I would like back up, I would kind of, I would be so into writing, but then it was so intense that I kind of took my distance, right?
Okay.
On an issue or certain type of place or whatever, and I say, no, maybe I shouldn't be talking about this, or maybe I don't really want to tell this story, that type of thing. Because after all, as an author, you realize that, you only share what they want people to know, and like I was just realizing the other day, I didn't remember that I wrote about my time when I was dancing as a stripper in the US. And I say, oh, I should have put that on my book, because I was in a presentation and one of the questions, and I say, well, I did work as a stripper, but I don't think I put it in my book. But somebody that had read the book said, oh no, yeah, you did talk about that. And I was like, oh my God, I completely forgot that I did
Yeah.
talk about that. So there you have it, yeah, I think also, comes to a point, your memory can only give so much or take so much. Like this is a very good example of that, because I swear, I say, oh, I should have wrote about that on the book. And somebody that had read the book said, yeah, you talk about that. You talk about those times when you were stripping. Like, oh my God, I didn't even remember. So,
Okay.
so yeah, it is a whole process of being creative and also being honest, being candid about it. I mean, because like I say, there were moments that were very dark, like when I experienced transphobia, when I experienced violence, rejection, isolation, and it's not easy to talk about it from your own experience, because there's some trauma there. Definitely, there is some trauma there. Yeah.
Now, thank you very much. I mean, we definitely appreciate the fact that you've gone through this process and there is a book and people can read it and it will resonate for some. And for others, it will just be one that gets them to the point of understanding what it is you went through. And like you rightfully said, it's your experience. So yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. As a last parting question, is there any tips that you'd like to share with anyone who's thinking about writing a book that is this personal, or even just undertaking a journey, or maybe even sitting in halfway? They've written this book halfway, but they're scared. What tips do you have for them?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues as a writer is to have self-doubt. And you have to stay away from that, because more than anything, our stories matter. Our stories are important. And there's not much really from our own experience written about. You can look for transgender issues and you're going to find a lot of theory, a lot of academics writing about it, but not from their own experience.
Yeah.
They writing about what they learn and they have read and they have maybe research, but not on a first voice, not from the person telling it themselves. So that is the most important thing, to realize that, yes. And also doubting that, well, who will want to know about my story? Why, well, you won't believe it, because it's with my book, I was thinking, well, but who would be interested about reading my story? This trans person that started working at 6 years old and then have to leave their family, their school, their home, their friends, to escape violence and persecution, and cross the border undocumented, and then lived in the US for 34 years. And well, like I say, I presented this book already in Madrid and England and universities all over the city, here in Mexico City, at different places. I already went to other universities here in Mexico as well. So people wants to know, they want to hear. So yeah, and just write. Don't worry about the final product till you finish. Then you worry about the style, the corrections. You just write and tell it like it is, and share what you feel that you want to share, because that's important too. You know, you don't have to like put yourself in a very vulnerable spot if you don't want to, because you also have to protect yourself as a writer as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Those were beautiful tips. So to anyone listening, write your own story. We are definitely interested in reading about it. And there are endless people looking for real, authentic stories. And that is what we're trying to gain access to. And so, yeah, thank you so much, Alexandra. You are an absolutely phenomenal Shero. So thank you. And all
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a great honor.
Last thing, when could we expect an English copy of your book? What is your timeline?
I think hopefully by fall this year, hopefully.
Okay, fantastic.
I'm
Thank you
hoping.
so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to anyone listening, please like, subscribe, and follow for more amazing Sheroes.